Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. All right, let me first of all start by saying a very big thank you to the school management for having me here. It's a privilege to address young folks like you and to be talking to you particularly about life-changing decisions such as your career choices or where you'd be going to. So I don't take it for granted. And once again, I'm also glad about the fact that your school is making out the time and has thought it fit to even have this kind of sessions for you. Trust me, you have no idea what the school is doing for you just to make sure that something like this is available for you. So please, together, can you give a round of applause to the school management for this? Please do it very well. So I'm going to try as much as possible in the short time that I have to talk to you about your career choices and also give you some examples of how I made my own choices and why I'm here today. One of the things you need to understand is that when you begin to decide on what you're going to do with yourself, there are decisions that have already been made for you by your innate abilities. There are decisions that have already been made for you by your genetic compositions. And there are decisions that have been made for you either by your background or by your parenting. Your background and parenting can be changed if you don't like the decisions that those choices have made for you. But your innate abilities and your genetic compositions, you almost cannot change those ones. So one of the things you must understand is that whatever choice you're making today or at the end of today, as you proceed into the senior high school, as you make your career decisions, there will be three categories that determine the choices that you make. What I'm going to try as much as possible to help you to do today is to make sure that you are not environmentally conditioned, but you are making deliberate choices. I did say that number one, your innate ability will determine your choices. Number two, your genetic abilities or composition will determine your choices. And number three, your parenting or your background. Your innate abilities you cannot change. Your genetic composition you cannot change. But your parenting and your background, you can move away from it and become a better person if what you have isn't good enough. Am I speaking to somebody here? Do you understand what I'm saying? All right, so you need to come to the point where you are not simply making a choice simply because it has to do with your parenting influence or your parental influence and your environmental background and choices. Some people, if they are raised in a home where there are quite a number of lawyers, they automatically become lawyers. Just because their father is a lawyer, their mother is a lawyer, they have siblings who are lawyers, maybe the firstborn in your family, the secondborn in your family is also a lawyer. Even if you have a different tendency, you almost now have the proclivity to decide that I'm going to be a lawyer just because your parents are lawyers. Is there anything wrong in making that choice if that's what your parents are? Absolutely not. But if you do not have exactly the same skill, the same tendencies, the same abilities as they do, and you decide to do what they are doing, you're probably making the wrong decision and you're going to struggle on the long run. If, for example, your father is a professor of medicine, your mom is a lecturer and she lectures medicine, or your parents are engineers, most likely they have the inner desire for you to become an engineer. Is that correct? But does that mean that you must become an engineer just because your parents are engineers? So the first thing you need to deal with is the parental and environmental influence to make sure that your decisions are not solely based on the professions and the passions of your fathers and your mother. There are times when parents try to live their dreams through their children. Do you understand what I mean by parents try to live their dreams through their children? The way parents try to live their dreams through their children is by deciding that their children are going to study law, maybe because they wanted to study law and they couldn't get to study law. Maybe because they wanted to become medical doctors and for whatever reason they didn't become doctors. Or maybe because they wanted to become engineers, architects, whatever it is that they wanted to be, and they couldn't become that thing. Or they even became that thing, but there are chances they've not been able to harness. So they would decide that their children will become that thing that they never became. So sometimes when your parents are also asking you to do this, do that, do this, do that, it's also because of something that, are you with us in this class? Are you with us? Are you sure? Okay, please, I'd like everybody's attention. Make sure you're not doing any other thing except you're taking notes and it has to do with what I'm saying. So you need to be sure that you're not doing something or becoming the extension of your parents' life. How many of you know the word annex? You've ever heard of the word annex? Right, you know what it means, right? What does it mean? An extension of a house, an additional part of the house. So many of you unconsciously, if you do something just because it's what your parent wants, you are becoming an annex of your parents. If you do something just because it is what they would like, then you are becoming an annex. How many of you want to become an annex of your parents in their career choices? Nobody, right? Okay, you want to be. So if it's a choice, fantastic. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't unconsciously just become the annex of your parents' professional careers. Don't unconsciously or involuntarily become the annex of your parents' career. So that's the first phase. Now, the second one is about your innate abilities. For example, how many of you know what your skills are? Raise your hand. You have some skills, you have identified them. Okay, fantastic. I can see quite a number of hands. How many of you know what your passions are? The things you are very passionate about. Awesome. I like this. I can see a couple of hands up. Now, let me now ask it this way. How many of you have seen an alignment between your passion and your skills? An alignment between your passion and your skill. Fantastic. A few more hands. So, one of the things, maybe the final question before I now go on to that is, how many of you have made some career decisions? For example, you've decided you're going to the arts, you're going to the humanities, or you're going to the sciences based on those passions and those skills. How many hands? A few more hands. Great. So one very important thing is to make sure that, as I said, it's your innate abilities, your passions, and your skills that determine your choices. Do you know why? Those skills will not leave you forever. Those innate abilities will not leave you forever. So if you make a decision regarding a career and it has nothing to do with your skill, in a few years from now, you are going to be struggling with that other career. But if you make a decision regarding your career and the decision you have made has absolutely everything to do with your skill, then you know that you will not struggle because everything you are doing is something that you're passionate about. Do you understand me? So one of the reasons people struggle on their career today is because the career is not something they wanted to do. And they are frustrated. Some of them have a job, but it's frustrating. Some others can't get a job because what they did is not what they were supposed to be doing in the first place. So you need to ensure that what you're going to do, whatever decision you're going to make, has everything to do with your career. Now, let me talk a bit about myself. I remember when I was in JS3, what you now call year 9, isn't it? And I was going to the senior school. One of the challenges I had was that sometimes some of the school authority made absolute decision on the basis of our results. So I wanted to be an art student, and because I wanted to be an art student, I decided I was going to be a lawyer. I knew that I was a very good speaker. I really wanted to be a lawyer. And everything I was doing was bent on, at some point I said, you know what, maybe I should be an actor. Actors were famous, and you become an actor, you become famous, everybody sees you and all of that. Oh, I wanted to be talking all over the place, so what can I do to be talking? Oh, that has to be a lawyer, and that's what I wanted to become. But when I did my external examination, which is called Junior WAEC, I don't know what you call it right now. Do you still call it Junior WAEC? Or, sorry? Becker, that's what you call it now. They're just changing everything. But we used to call it Junior WAEC. So when we were doing ours, I had all credits, and I think my business studies was fantastic. Maybe I think that was my A. So when I got in front of the administrator, who was our vice principal, we had the main principal, then we had like two vice principals. So I think it was the second principal, or the second vice principal, who was in charge of, sorting us into various classes. They didn't realize that my business studies was extremely good. And on the basis of my business studies being extremely good, she decided I must go to the commercial class. I was annoyed, I was frustrated, I didn't like it. But I didn't know what else to do at that time. Maybe I could have protested, maybe I could have gone to the principal, maybe I could have gone to, but I didn't know what to do. So I just took it on. But I was also very smart. So you know what happened? Now, in the senior secondary school, I was now forced to take courses like accounting, and I hated mathematics. And I didn't need a prophet to tell me that I hated mathematics. How many of you know the subject you already dislike right now? Awesome, almost every one of you. So let me tell you one thing. As you're going into the senior school and you're going to make choices, make sure you're not making choices that will get you stuck with those subjects or courses that you don't like. If you don't like them, it's okay not to like some of them. So immediately decide, if you are still bent on going to the sciences and you know that you don't like physics, chemistry, biology, you had better avoid it now. Now. In fact, if you don't have an idea of what they look like, try and, you have smartphones, try and go online, take a session on physics, take a section on biology, chemistry, see what it looks like, see if it's something that you like. If you are sure that you don't like it, there's no point trying to impress anybody. Run away from it. You watch some skits and they tell you certain things and say, if this person is this, if this person is that, they say, run, oh. Please let me look at your friend and say, run, oh. Come on now, I thought you would have more energy than this. Look at your neighbor, the person right beside you, and say, run, oh. If there's a subject that you don't like, run from it now. You have the opportunity now. And I'm going to come back later to how some people didn't run from them, but it became a problem. So in my own case, I couldn't avoid it. They have put me in the commercial class, and I absolutely did not have a choice. So I was now struggling with accounting. I did it in SS1, failed it. It was woeful. I think I did it in second term, SS1. It was terrible. Third term, SS1. I managed it again. It was a bad idea. So you know what I did? As I was going to SS2, I already said to myself, any weight of sin that doth easily beset me, I'm going to set it aside. So I decided, number one, I'm not going to write accounting in WAEC, because I didn't even want to go to the commercial class and I wasn't looking for anything like that. I looked at all the other courses. I said, okay, it looks like I'm good to go. I can write 8 subjects. If I had my way, I would have removed mathematics. But I didn't have a choice. So I was stuck with that one. And because I was stuck with that one, I kept studying for it. But the one that I was not stuck with, which was accounting, I just struck it out. So I took a risk of writing 8 subjects only instead of 9 subjects in WAEC. Guess what? When I wrote my WAEC, I cleared all my papers at one sitting. And the reason what was the reason I cleared all my papers at one sitting? I already identified the one that was going to give me a problem. Are you following me? I identified the one that was going to give me a problem, and I immediately decided I would not write it in WAEC. The one I didn't have a choice about, I started studying for it, and I was able to clear all papers at one sitting. So right now, the decision you make about which of the departments you're going into is going to affect your WAEC results, is going to affect your career choices, and if you don't decide right now based on what you want, not what looks good, not what looks nice, not what others are going to like, then you will be in trouble. I said if you make your decision based on not what looks good, not what looks nice, not what others are going to like. Everybody say that with me. Not what looks good. No. Well, I'm talking to young people. You're probably all under the age of 16, right? Approximately. So I expect so much more from you. So say with me loudly. Not what looks good.
Not what looks good.
Not what looks nice, not what will impress other people. Say it with me again. Not what looks good, not what looks nice, not what will impress other people. So never make any decision on the basis of those things. If it looks good, fine. But but the more important part is that you have to like it. It has to be what you want. If it looks nice, the more important thing is that it's your decision. If it impresses other people, but it is not what you want, don't do it. Because if you do it today, when you start making life decisions, when you start making tough choices, will they be there for you? They won't be there for you. They won't be there to write the exams for you. In the university, when you start dealing with some of those difficult courses that you could have avoided, if you don't make your decision right now, they won't be there to write those exams for you. You have to do them by yourself. So make those decisions right now. So I've just told you a bit about myself. Now, another thing that I struggled with, but fortunately, because I had the inner skill, inner ability, I overcame it. I remember the last time I was here. How many of you were here when I was here the last time? All right, awesome. So you remember I told you about how I repeated the class. Do you remember that? You don't remember? So I repeated the class. I'm not sure you guys get to repeat classes these days. It's getting easier, you know. But let me tell you a bit about it and what happened. So in my school, passing mathematics and English was a compulsory thing. If you did not pass mathematics and English language and some other courses, you would not be promoted. And here was I struggling with mathematics and English. But because I had the innate ability to speak, I realized that passing my English was not really a problem. It's the mathematics I had to focus on. So what did I do to become a better person at mathematics and English? Number one thing I did was I found a friend who was good at mathematics. I started studying with him. So this friend who was good at mathematics, as he was studying, I would sit with him, watch how he studied, and ask him for, clarifications. So he would help me out on some of those exercises and show me what to do. What's the easiest way out? Okay, you're about to write an exam or you're preparing for an external exam. This is the easiest way to deal with this thing. So he helped me, and that prepared me for mathematics. But as far as English was concerned, a new teacher was introduced to our school. And when this new teacher was introduced to our school, the first day he came to our class and they said to us, okay, this is going to be your new English teacher. His name is Mr. Okeke. And I noticed that he was all smiles. I'm like, this man that is all smiling and everything. And just because he was all smiles, I went to him after the class. I said, sir, thank you for coming to our school. I just want to be your friend and stuff like that. And guess what I did? I started writing essays without anybody telling me to do so. And started taking my essays to him. And he would correct my essays. He would correct them, whether it's a letter or it's a long essay. I just kept writing and taking them to him. And he would correct. At that time, remember I used the word the last time, grandiloquent. I was grandiloquent. I would use big grammar to say everything that needed to be said. Big grammar. So one day, Mr. Okeke and another English teacher called me and said, come, what's the meaning of this word? I told him. What's the meaning of this word? I told him. What's the meaning of this word? They said, okay, so we see that you understand those words. But if we are going to mark your scripts, do you want us to be using dictionary to mark your scripts? I said, no, sir. So you need to simplify your words. And they told me simplicity was class. From that day, I started simplifying my words. And guess what? It made it easier for me when I was going to write my exam. And by the time I was going to write my next exam, after repeating the SS1, I became a better person. My writing had improved dramatically. My speaking was also improving dramatically. So one major thing that I've shared, if you're listening, is that how did I solve my mathematics problem? A friend. How did I solve my English problems? Writing essays, taking it to a teacher. So you notice that I got help. If there's anything you need help with right now, particularly for subjects that you cannot avoid, look for somebody that can help you, look for somebody who is better, and ask them to help you. And one beautiful part I like about my own career choice is that my parents did not influence anything at all. In fact, they stayed completely out of my choices. Until today, I'm still very grateful that they didn't try to force me to go to a particular course or a particular department or study in a particular university or anything. They just asked me what I was doing, and I told them this is what I wanted, this is what I wanted, this is what I wanted, and I got their support. So how do you overcome that barrier? If, for example, some of you are dealing with parents who are insisting that you must go to a particular course or you must study this, the first and the most important thing you can try to do is to come to school and talk to your teachers. Do you understand? Come to school, talk to your teachers. If for whatever reason you are dealing with parents who are insisting that you must study a particular course. Now, when you talk to your teachers about it, allow your teachers to have a conversation with them, or the school management to have a conversation with them, and try to convince them about your skill, your innate abilities, and everything they have seen that makes you more suited for another course or for another subject or department. Am I making sense to you? So if you have issues like that, talk to your teachers, talk to your parents. So today, what am I doing today outside of school? Everything that I'm doing today revolves around speaking and writing. My profile that was read to you told you that I published at least 13 books. Actually, just this month, I released 3 additional books, making it 16 books. So if I'm now doing books today, I'm on television all the time, I'm doing new videos. Of course, everybody is doing content today, but doing content on social media is different from being on television. Because to get on television, they would have watched out for certain skills, certain elements, something that you're doing uniquely before you get invited, and then you get regular slots. So what exactly, or how does my career choice connect with what I'm doing today? You notice that I said I wanted to be in the arts class earlier, right? And today I'm more active in the media space. And even in the corporate world where I do a lot of training, what I'm doing is training people on soft skills, public speaking, becoming a better speaker, becoming a confident speaker, knowing how to handle your audience, analyzing your audience and stuff like that. So all that I'm doing today aligns with the career choices that I made a few years back. So you need to ask yourself, for example, let me ask you, maybe 1 or 2 people can tell me, in the next 15 years, when you will be done with school, or in the next 20 years, you're absolutely done with school, where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing? Anyone? Let me have a few volunteers. You like to try? No, please try. I'll come back to you. Others? Anyone? Yes, you? Oh. You see yourself doing what? I didn't hear that. You see yourself doing what?
I see myself with a big fashion designer.
A big fashion designer. Absolutely. Fantastic. Yes, any other person? Any other person? Let me have a few more examples now. Come on. Where do you see yourself after school? What would you be doing?
Working as a hardware engineer.
Sorry?
I would be working as a hardware engineer.
I didn't hear that.
I would be working as a hardware engineer.
Hardware engineer, fantastic. Those who will be developing more gadgets for us to use, yes? Yes, you. Sorry? Developing games. Is that what you said? Fantastic, yes. Develop websites. Awesome. And you need to inculcate artificial intelligence. You know, the world is big on AI now. Yes, the next person to him, there's somebody right beside him. CEO of a company doing what? Detergents? Gadgets, making gadgets. Awesome. So you realize that you already have some inclinations. You already have some ideas. So what are you supposed to do right now? One major thing that you're supposed to do right now is, my mic is off. Okay, one major thing you're supposed to do right now is every decision you're going to make regarding academics and everything must align. Do you understand? Everything you're trying to do right now must align with that decision you want to take in the future. So if you're making decisions that do not align, then there's a problem. Make sure that those decisions consistently align with those career choices that you have decided to have. Are you following me? Are you with me? So it's very important. Then let me also emphasize a bit on peer pressure. Don't allow anybody pressure you into a choice of career. Don't allow anybody, starting from your friends, to your teachers, to your parents, don't let anybody pressure you. You probably have had this in the course of this week, have you? So let me tell you why it's so important. Today, I train bankers. I train for Access Bank. I train for SCMB. I train for Wema. I train for quite a number of banks. And I've done some trainings repeatedly with some of those banks for people that have just been recruited into those banks. Let me tell you what I see with those bankers. Do you know what I see? Especially with the people who have just been recruited at the entry-level stage into the banks. I realize that many of the people who have just been recruited into the bank have no business. They did not study anything commercial. They didn't do business studies. They didn't do business administration. They didn't study accounting. They didn't study banking and finance. They didn't do anything related. In fact, there was one of my classes, and when I asked them, how many of you studied anything related to banking? Guess what? Only one person said he studied accounting. Every other person studied something else. So how come we have a classroom full of people who didn't study accounting? Maybe while they were in secondary school, they were bragging, I'm a science student, I do physics, I do biology, I do chemistry, I do this, I do that. And then they bragged all through the university. Now they came out of the university, they are looking for a job in the bank. Do you know why it became a problem for some of them? It became a problem for some of them because for the next 6 months, they now have to study afresh everything they did not study. So they wasted 4 years, study science courses, only to come and end up in a commercial class and have to study all over just to become relevant in that class. So if you don't make the right choices now, in the future, what's going to happen is that you will spend more time studying for the relevant courses that you should have studied in the university or that you should have taken in your secondary school days or high school days. Does that make sense to you? Do you understand what I'm saying? So make sure that right now you don't make your decisions on the basis of peer pressure. It's okay for your friend to be in the science classes. It's okay for your friend to be in arts and humanities. It's okay for your friend to be in any other department. But don't say, I'm going to this department or I'm going to this class just because that's where my friend is going. If you're going to go there, it must be what you want. If you're going to go there, it shouldn't even be because the teacher said so. This is what I want. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. This is what I want to do. So I can tell you confidently today that everything I am doing was what I had been studying for. And by the way, I wrote my first book as a secondary school student. So, thank you. So I was very clear on what I wanted to do with myself. I was very clear on where I was going, and that's why I'm still here today. So if there's any one of you who is still thinking, still trying to make a decision on the basis of what someone else thinks, or maybe because that's what your dad wants, that's what your mom wants, that's what an uncle told you, or maybe an uncle living abroad told you, oh, study this course, there are jobs for people abroad who study that course. Please study it because that's what you want to study. Study it because of what? That's what you want to study. Not because of what an uncle, a friend, a dad, a mom, not because of what they told you. Remember what I said earlier? You don't choose because it's nice, because it impresses somebody, or because it looks good. You choose because that's what you want. So I'm not sure there's anything that I've left out right now. But one other thing, okay, let me tell you a bit more about the abilities that I saw in myself too, that made me also decide. I told you about my speaking skill. There was also the leadership part of me. And from a very young age, even as a teenager, I was already leading a group of people. So I just knew that everything I wanted to do had to do with communication. And because everything I wanted to do had to do with communication, I already knew that what would align effectively with communication, there is no, okay, tell me, how does physics and chemistry, how do they align with communication? Business, biz admin, banking and finance, accounting, how do they align with communication? They have nothing to do with communication. So I was so sure of what I wanted to do, and I really knew that everything I was going to do would revolve around communication. And thankfully, I knew that a long time ago. So I started making my choices and doing everything in the area of communication. So that was how I even decided that it was mass communication. Although I wanted to study English, that was a mistake. And then I ended up studying mass communication. So I made my choices at the end of the day. Even though there was a mistake, the mistake could have been corrected. I then said, okay, don't worry, I think it's fine, just leave it that way. And that was how I studied mass communication. And today, everything I'm doing is still in that field. So let me just do a quick recap before I ask you to start, throwing your questions at me. The summary of everything that I've said to you is: number one, know your innate abilities. You remember that? Number two, what are your own skills? And number three, what's your passion? Your innate abilities, your skills, your passion. Say with me again: your innate abilities, your skills, and your passion. You must identify, just in case you haven't identified them, you must identify those three things. Now, after identifying those three things, you now need to decide, how does